morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, and the online people too. He's Stefan Baumeister. He's a senior lecturer and adjunct professor at the University of Jyväskylä in the School of Business and Economics. Since his early stages as researcher, he's interested in grain transportation, and his doctoral dissertation was about an eco-label for the airline industry. He has a broad experience as researcher and communicator. He was visiting a research fellow at Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia, and a visiting graduate researcher at the University of California in Los Angeles. He is currently the program director of the Corporate Environmental Management Master's Degrees program, and he's adjunct professor at the School of Business and Economics Education in Aviation in Tampere University. He is the author of many articles in leading journals of the field, such as Transport Policy, Journal of Transport Geography, Transportation Research Party, etc. Yes. And outside the academic institutions, he is an advisor to the government of Finland in questions related to transportation policies. And he is a member of Finnish IPCC working group by the Ministry of Environment for the years 2024 and between 2024 and 2028. And also a board member of the Finnish Union of University Researchers and Teachers for years 2024-2026. He is also a science communicator in different national media, and his main research field is nowadays transportation, which is about to become one of the major contributors of climate change. He tries to find cutting-edge solutions on how to mitigate climate change impacts on the transportation sector through market-driven approaches and technological innovations. Thank you, Stefan, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me today here. Yes, I don't need to introduce myself any further, very nice to be here today and to see so many of you. I would like to welcome you also on behalf of FORTHEM to the FORTHEM Green Travel Roadshow. So as you might have heard, and I'm also going to talk a bit more about that later, this event is also part of the FORTHEM Green Travel Roadshow, which I'm currently undertaking. So I'm traveling at the moment for 1 month across Europe, visiting all FORTHEM universities and talk about green travel. But here's an introduction slide, but I don't have to go to this anymore because I was already kindly introduced. Maybe as a fun fact, I can add here that also I like traveling by train, so there's a bit of a passion to that as well. But with no further ado, here's the agenda for today. So I'm going to talk a bit about green travel. I'm giving you a bit of an introduction, what green travel actually means and what it stands for. Also, I tell a bit more about why we need green travel. Then I'm going to tell you more about the FORTHEM Green Travel Roadshow, which is a part of this event here. Then I give you some examples of how green travel can be practiced. Here especially using the example of Finland, which is an island, so also here challenging a bit the paradigm towards green travel. And last but not least, I'm going to share a bit about my own experience with green travel. So also going to tell a bit more about my trip today, coming here, but also some past experience I had with green travel. But yeah, so what is green travel? Well, usually I like to start with this graph here. It kind of gives you quite a good idea of the differences in terms of emissions when you use different transportation modes. So traveling by train, for example, means we produce about 14 grams of CO2. This number might, of course, differ. Actually, I just learned that French SNCF accounts was only 3 grams of CO2. But nevertheless, an average of 14 grams of CO2 per passenger kilometer is what basically train travel produces in emissions. However, if we use other modes such as, for example, the airplane, the emissions are 20 times, so 285 grams of CO2 per passenger kilometer. Of course, there are also other options. So there's the one extreme would be, of course, going by plane, which would be by far the worst option. The best option would going by train. But then, of course, you can also use other options, such as, for example, carpooling, using the bus, or then, of course, also using individual car use. But what I really want to summarize here is it's important that we focus on the emissions that we produce when we travel. So each kilometer we travel has a different emissions amount depending on the mode we use. And therefore, green travel really means focusing on your emissions. However, it's not only focusing on it, it's also meaning that we have to be aware of the issue. So it starts usually with awareness. Then we have to understand the differences between the transportation modes that we can select. But then we also have to actively select them. So it's not enough to just say, oh, well, yes, it's green to go by train, but we also have to then use the train in order to make a difference. So I think this is really important when we talk about green travel. So what kind of transportation modes we are using, and it makes quite a huge difference. But why do we need green travel? So of course, I think we all are aware of the fact that we are in a climate crisis. We're facing it, and I think also the floods that we had last year here in Valencia, which were quite also big in the media, and also we heard about it in Finland, really tells also about like the situation we are in. So climate change is happening. We are in a climate crisis. We have to cut back our greenhouse gas emissions. It's really like time for that now if you want us to make a change. Transportation accounts for about 25% of the global CO2 emissions. So of all the activities we do, 1/4 comes from transportation alone. While other activities are getting better, such as energy production, transportation is still lagging behind. So transportation still has not yet gotten any better. Actually, it's even falling behind. Some experts are saying transportation might become even one of the major causes of climate change in the future, unless we really make big changes there. Of course, technological changes happening there, also policy is changing, but it's also us, we also have to make a change here. So by us selecting clearly greener transportation modes, we can actually make a difference. And this is also why we talk about green travel here today. Putting this into a perspective, if you want to stay within the 2-degree global warming, and as you know, 2 degrees is already quite critical, we rather should focus on 1.5 degree global warming and not exceeding that. However, we are roughly already there. So 2 degrees should really be our goal now, and we should hold on to that. Then basically on average, we can only produce about 2.3 tons of CO2 per person and per year, which is not a lot. And for this, only about 25% can be used for transportation, so 575 kilograms. Why I'm putting these numbers out here is because I'm going to show you soon a couple of examples where basically I show you what is the difference using green travel versus like airplane. And then you can actually also see that in order to stay with those 575 kilograms, each kilogram really matters. And actually the choice of transportation mode really makes a difference here. So how to practice green travel? Of course, as I said, we have to really shift away from the airplane. We also have to shift away from private car use, more into like public transportation, such as train, buses, ferries if necessary. Carpooling is also an option. But really the idea here is to make a shift. So we really have to go away from those carbon-intensive transportation modes, such as airplanes or private car use. There's different ways how we can green travel. The ideal way, of course, would be to not use the airplane at all. This would be the ideal way, and this is also what I would recommend whenever possible. However, of course, in some cases, there is no other choice. We have to use the airplane in some cases. For example, we have to cross a sea, or maybe there's very poor connections, or we have to get somewhere a bit faster. A hybrid option is also acceptable and can still be considered green travel because it still reduces your emissions. However, it can only be considered green travel if less than half of the distance has been traveled by airplane, or if only one direction has been traveled by airplane. So then we can still talk about green travel. If more than half the distance is traveled by airplane, or you go both ways, then that is not green travel anymore. Green travel, of course, takes longer, so obviously, and also the examples I'm going to show you in a moment. So in this case, however, we have also here some funding available, so Erasmus actually gives extra money for green travel. So if you want to use a staff or a student Erasmus funding, there's an option to do green travel. So basically you get a top up in order to kind of like for the extra costs and the extra travel time that you have to endure when using green travel. So also there's some support there. But yeah, coming to the Green Travel Roadshow, so now I want to tell a bit about that. So as you can see here from the map, this is actually what I'm currently doing. So I've been traveling now for 21 days, so this is the 21st day I'm on my trip. So I left on the 15th of March in Jyväskylä, Finland, and I traveled from there first to Riga, our first FORTHEM partner, where I spent 2 days. Then from there I continued to Poland, to Opole, where I was as well 2 days. Then I went on to Romania. I was in Sibiu. After Sibiu, I went to Mainz. Then I went to Palermo. And then, yes, I came from Palermo at the beginning of this week, now here to Valencia. So I arrived 2 days ago. And tomorrow I'm going to depart from Valencia, going via Dijon and Actor, then back to Finland. So the entire trip takes 30 days. The idea is to visit each FORTHEM partner university, where I give them basic talks about green travel, creating more awareness. I'm also collecting some data. In total, I'm traveling 15,000 kilometers by train, so I'm passing through 18 countries. So it's quite an extensive trip, but really the focus here is on traveling only by train, so I'm not using any airplanes at all. Well, here are the tour dates, if you want to look more into the details. So you can see now we are at number 6, Valencia, so there's still Burgundy and Actor. But yes, these are tour dates, so you can see I started in mid of March and I'm going to be back home mid-April. So why we're doing this, the idea is really to create more awareness. So we want also to motivate more students and staff to use green travel. We want really to kind of like get you more out of the airplane and into the greener modes. So we want to really create awareness also towards this option. This is also why I'm using green travel to come here. So also want to really set an example for others. Also, I'm also collecting some data. So the idea is also to learn more about green travel, as I'm a researcher myself. Also want to understand a bit more why we don't use more green travel, what are the obstacles. But at the same time, I'm also interested to learn about benefits. So what kind of benefits green travel can give us, and why maybe we can also motivate, or how we can motivate more people to use it. And last but not least, also we want to disseminate more information to the FORTHEM network. So we want to also use the data that I collect and the information I collect to make it easier accessible for all of you. So in the future, if you want to use green travel to the FORTHEM webpage, you'll be able to find more information on that. Yes, so what is happening during the roadshow? So I'm giving open lectures at each university, like the one here today. I'm also meeting with university staff and students, so also have active exchange. I do also collect data. I'm also doing seminars and workshops. We also had some roundtable discussions at some universities and or some stakeholder engagement. It depends a bit also what the university want to do with this Green Travel Roadshow. During the trip, I'm also very active in social media, so I'm also posting pictures, stories. I'm also writing on LinkedIn, and I'm also writing a blog where I'm kind of reflecting also on my experience, because I'm also using green travel. During these trips, also try to, of course, share my own experience of green travel with a larger community. And after the trip, as said, we also try to disseminate more information and also the experience I've gained from this trip. If you want to follow me or be part of the Green Travel Roadshow, here are also the links to my Instagram, to my LinkedIn, and also to my blog. So through this, you can also like join basically the journey. So you can also follow me and see what's happened during the trip. I especially recommend the blog. A lot of people have been reading it already. So there you can also learn a bit about the reflections of like my journey, what I've been experiencing on the road, what kind of things I've also learned about green travel, about myself, but also from others while talking about it. But yeah, then coming to green travel in practice. So I want to show you now 3 examples of how green travel can be practiced. The first one I want to show would be a short trip to a neighboring country. But here really I used Finland as a geographic location because it's easy to use green travel if you start in the center of Europe. But Finland, as you can see from the map, is more or less an island, so we have water around us. There's some land borders, but those are with Russia which means those borders are currently closed, so we're not able actually to go that way. So the only way usually to depart from Finland is you have to cross the water. Naturally, people use the airplane. Of course, the other alternative would then be using the ferry and then using the train. But let's have a look at some of the examples how green travel could be practiced despite being in a geographic location that maybe is a bit disadvantaged in that sense. So going, for example, from Jyväskylä to Umeå, which is in Sweden, our neighboring country, across the water. The classic way, of course, would be one would fly to Helsinki, and then from there, from Helsinki to Stockholm, and then from Stockholm to Umeå. My suggestion here would be to use the green travel to go to the nearest harbor in Vasa, and from there then take a ferry over to Umeå. In terms of travel times, roughly it would not take any longer, so 9 hours and 20 minutes. Here also take into account the time it takes to go to the airport, to then check in, to go to security, and then getting on the flight and so on, and of course also then from the destination airport getting back into the city. So this is also something we often forget when we talk about air travel. It's very fast. Well, maybe the flight might only be 2 hours, but going to the airport, coming from the airport, the total journey might take 9 hours in the end. Here green travel would be a very good alternative because you could save 96% of your emissions. So flying there would produce 320 kilograms of CO2. And remember, I mentioned earlier 575 kilograms as the cutoff where basically we should stop. That's basically what we allowed to emit per year. So 320 gets us pretty close. Actually, round trip, we would not exceed it. However, if you use green travel, you would be quite safe because only 13.4 kilograms of CO2 would be emitted. So here you would be really able to cut back your emissions significantly by 96%. But of course, while it's easy to go to a neighboring country by green travel, if you go on longer distances, let's say from Finland to Italy, the situation looks of course differently. So here, in this case, I would suggest that maybe a hybrid mode would make sense. So if you would travel all the way green, it might take 3 days. But if you, for example, take an airplane from Helsinki to Berlin and then travel green until Rome, it would still be considered as green travel because more than half the distance has been covered by green modes. So this way you would still be able to save 43% of the emissions. And again, if you look at those emission numbers, well, going there by airplane completely would already be at 813 kilograms of CO2. So here we would exceed the 575 goal. If we go green, it still would be within the limits of 563 kilograms. So 43% emissions reductions. And then the third example I want to show you would be to go from Jyväskylä to Berlin. So here maybe the idea would be to go one way green and then fly back, or vice versa. Let's say you have to go to Berlin for a conference and you want to be there on a certain day. You might fly there, but then you could, for example, use green travel on the way home. So this would still allow you to save 42% of emissions, so still quite significant. Even so you're flying one way, going back green, which takes slightly longer, would still allow you to save 42% of your total emissions. So also this is something you have to keep in mind as an option. It's not always about going all the way there green, but also using hybrid modes can help you reducing emissions already significantly. To summarize, yes, I would say green travel is actually a wonderful option to really cut back your emissions. It's a way how you can actively also take things into your own hands and also make a difference. Keep in mind that we have a climate budget, we are in a climate crisis, so we should also see ourselves on a climate budget. Often we talk about we don't have money for things, but maybe we also don't have emissions anymore that we can spend because of our situation. So especially when you travel to neighboring countries, I think there is no need to fly because it will not be any faster, but you can really reduce your emissions significantly by going green. For longer trips, I would say hybrid modes are acceptable. If you go for longer trips across Europe, then of course flying for some part of the trip is okay, or flying one direction is okay, as long as it's still within the limits of green travel. Also, one thing I want to point out is the use of night trains, night buses, night ferries. They also give you the chance actually to travel while you sleep, so you might already cover a lot of distance during the night time. You also save on accommodation costs, so this is a good alternative too. Last but not least, I want to point out again that Erasmus also gives you extra funding for green travel, so there's also kind of a reward system in there. But then I want to still talk a bit about my own experience with screen travel. So the first screen travel trip I did actually back in 2006 for academia. So back then I was an undergraduate student in Germany. I was going for Erasmus visit to Finland back then, and I was staying there for 1 year. And I said, well, why would I fly there? Because I'm going there for 1 year. It doesn't matter if I go 1 day by plane or I take 3 days by train. So I really wanted to go there by train. The challenge, however, back then was that Erasmus was only focusing on costs. So they were saying, well, if you want to go there with our funding, you have to find the cheapest option. And well, green travel wasn't the cheapest option. So what I did, I just looked for the most expensive flight I could find. I asked a travel agent back then, they searched it for me, and in this way I was able to then prove that actually green travel is the cheaper option. So back then it was hard to do green travel. Nowadays it is actually easy. So Erasmus even supports it and encourages it and gives you extra funding. So keep also in mind here, things have changed already, things are getting better, but it is of course important that we also kind of like use this green travel option. So just having this top up is not enough. Well, then also for my professional career, I use green travel Erasmus funding. For example, I did a teaching visit to the University of Latvia in 22. Back then, I also used green travel to go there. So I was basically going from Jyväskylä via Helsinki, then by boat to Tallinn, and then I went all the way down to Riga by green mode. I was able to save 83% of my emissions, so quite significant actually also in this case. Also here I was able to use the Erasmus green travel funding, which kind of like covered for the extra costs that came to green travel. Then maybe towards the end, a few more like impressions also about my own journey coming here. So as I told you, I left like 3 weeks ago from Finland. So I've been traveling now for 3 weeks. So you can see here me departing from Jyväskylä. I went basically by train to Helsinki. Then I took a ferry to Estonia. From there, I then went across the border to Latvia. Also here you can see a picture like in the left corner where basically my computer in the train. So a lot of people ask me usually also, what do you do when you sit like 7, 8, 10, 12 hours on a train, like aren't you getting bored, or like how you make the time go? But basically I've really used this time for working. It has been very good. As you of course can imagine, also while I'm gone for 1 month, my work back home does not stop, so I have to also catch up with that. But those hours on the train were really useful for me. I could really focus on work. Also had Wi-Fi connections in most trains. So it was really like basically a rolling office. So in that sense, I wouldn't necessarily say that green travel, even though it might sound it takes very long, is lost time, but you can also use it for work actually. Well, in Riga we had some interesting activities. That was the first stop. So you could see here I was teaching some students. We had a course in geography. Then we had also a roundtable with some stakeholders. There were also people from the City Council of Riga and other researchers from the university. We had a really interesting discussion and also did some interviews there with some of the international office members. Then I continued the journey. I went via Lithuania to Poland. I reached Warsaw, where I stayed the night. Then I went to Opole, my second stop. So there again I gave lectures, we had workshops in Opole, very interesting setting also there, beautiful university town. Then I went on, I had then the first weekend where I stopped in Bratislava and in Budapest. So the nice thing with green travel is also you can stop on the way. It's not always that you have to go a very long distance and you have to spend a day on a train. You can also make stops, and I think that's really a big benefit. So I was able to see some interesting cities on the way, which I might otherwise have never seen. So also keep this in mind as a bonus for using green travel. Going to Bratislava, going to Budapest, something I would have not been able to if I would have just used the airplane. And then I took the first night train from Budapest. I went to Sibiu. So here also the night train I mentioned earlier is a very good option to kind of like really get overnight to your destination. So in the evening you get on board and then you go to sleep, and the next morning you're basically at your destination, which I think is a very convenient option also to travel. And I think that's something we should always keep in mind as an option here. In Sibiu at the Lucian Blaga University, we had a really nice event. We had more than 100 people actually in an audience room following a panel discussion that I was part of. Like we had different stakeholders there talking about green travel from different perspectives. A really nice event. And then I continued from Sibiu. I went then to Vienna. I had a stop in Vienna. I took a night train from Sibiu to Vienna. In Vienna, I had actually half a day off, which was really nice. I was able to also enjoy a beautiful city of Vienna, walking around a bit there. So something I would have not been able to again if I would have just flown from Sibiu to Mainz. In Mainz, here in Germany, then I had like also different talks, meetings. Also, we had a staff training there. I was guiding, and I met with students. So really interesting activity also there. A lot of engagement also with student and staff there, which was really exciting. And so on. Yes, I don't have more pictures, but I think you get an idea of like how this journey also has been going. To the end, I also want to give you a couple of tips still, if you're interested in green travel, how to do it. Green travel, of course, requires a bit more preparation. So this is something that you have to kind of like also put a bit of work and effort into it, because if you book a flight, it's very easy. You just book Valencia to Mainz and then or to Frankfurt, and then you just fly there. However, if you want to go there green, of course, you need to plan a bit more. You need to think about what route you want to use, what kind of vehicle you want to use. Do you want to go by train, by bus, and so on. Here, I would say Google Maps is actually a really good tool. Google Maps has become quite good in that sense that it also has green travel as an option now there. Many people use it for like route planning for car traveling, but of course you can also use it for green travel actually. Then Rome to Rio is another good website that gives you a lot of tips of like what are the different options, green travel options to go from one place to another. And also rail.cc is a very good website which gives you a lot of information about rail travel in Europe. Green travel, of course, requires a bit of extra work. Also, you have to often book the tickets yourself because travel agents not always offering this option. It is a bit of extra work to plan, but as I said, you can also gain some benefits by basically choosing the route that fits you best. You can make stops on the way, you can see interesting places. So this is something also keep in mind when you use green travel. It is a bit of extra work, but it also brings you a lot of benefits as such. Here are a couple of my publications. As mentioned earlier, also I've been doing a lot of research on green travel, and I'm also collecting data during this journey. Here are some of my latest publications in the field related to green travel. So if you want to read more, please have a look at one on those papers. With no further ado, I would like to thank you for attention. And I think, do we have time for questions? Or should we open the floor for the audience? Yes. Okay, yes. I think you have to ask for a microphone, yes. Yes. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, that's all right. Good, perfect. Yes. Okay, good. Yes.
I have some questions, but maybe I can make them later after my presentation.
Okay.
So we can better connect both.
Perfect, yeah. Let's do so, yes. All right, good, good. Yes. Yes. Good. Yes, okay.
Maybe I can see.
Yeah, okay, yes, good, yes, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So now,
Okay, great. Yes.
Sergio Belda is PhD in
Yes.
local development
Okay,
and
yes. Yeah. Oh, you can also use
international
this.
cooperation.
Okay.
He is an associate professor at the Department of Social Work and Social Services at the University of Valencia.
A little bit. Yes.
His areas of specialization are global development and international cooperation, transformative learning, transitions to sustainability, community participation, social innovation, and social welfare. In these areas, he has published numerous articles, book chapters, and books. He has participated in regional, national, and international research projects, and he has coordinated and participated in different consultancy and research contacts with public administrations such as such as Fons Valencia per a la Solidaritat, l'Ajuntament de València i la Generalitat Valenciana. He develops innovation and coordination in teaching, and he has also carried out research stays at the University of also Norway, the University of Sussex in UK, and la Universidad Javierana in Colombia. And finally, he is the head of sustainability initiatives, and he is chair of cooperation and sustainable development at the University of Valencia. So,
Okay.
Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sara. If you don't mind, Stefan, I will move into Spanish. I think will be much easier for all of us to understand. But Stefan already read most of the things I'm presenting, so later on we can, I think, have a conversation on that. So, voy a pasar al castellano entonces, de modo que pueda ser más comprensible. Voy a presentaros de manera con cierta primicia, nos han enviado esta mañana el borrador definitivo de lo que va a ser nuestra guía de eventos sostenibles. La guía de eventos sostenibles de la Universidad de Valencia, que tiene una dimensión, un aspecto centrado en la cuestión del transporte. Esto sería, digamos, lo más próximo a una política pública propia en materia de transporte sostenible de la Universidad de Valencia. Voy a contar esto en el marco de las acciones o la política que se está desarrollando a nivel de la Universidad de Valencia desde el Vicerrectorado de Sostenibilidad, Cooperación y Vida Saludable en materia un poco más amplia de consumo responsable y comercio justo. Entonces, contar un poquito de esta política, introducir la guía y me centraré un poco más en la cuestión del transporte, tal y como se contempla en la guía. Bueno, muy brevemente, solo comentar que el consumo, digamos, el trabajar el consumo sostenible es algo, desde la universidad es algo muy estratégico. La universidad, sabéis, que tiene un impacto enorme en el territorio, el consumo de energía, las emisiones son de mucha importancia, pero es a la vez una institución con una gran autonomía dentro del sector público, pertenece al sector público en nuestro caso, pero tiene una gran autonomía, lo que permite que sea un espacio muy interesante para desarrollar políticas innovadoras en todos los campos y muy específicamente en el de la sostenibilidad. En nuestro caso, además, somos una universidad muy importante, casi 50.000, un alumnado de casi 50.000 personas, casi 5.000 profesoras, tengo una institución muy compleja, una universidad que también gasta mucho, más de 500 millones de presupuesto, una parte importante del cual se gasta diariamente o se gasta a lo largo del año en bienes y servicios, volumen de dinero que no se corresponde con el volumen de recursos en sostenibilidad, dado que tenemos un único técnico que se encarga de estas cuestiones y un área, bueno, con unos recursos limitados, pero no por ello menos activos y innovadores. Bueno, brevemente comentar un poco las cuestiones que tienen que ver con el gobierno de la sostenibilidad de nuestra universidad. Disponemos desde hace muy poco, unas pocas semanas, un flamante primer plan director de sostenibilidad, donde se trabaja de manera muy directa, con indicadores muy concretos y con mucha importancia la cuestión del consumo responsable. Es decir, esto del consumo responsable ya es una política central dentro de las políticas de sostenibilidad de nuestra universidad. Toda esta cuestión se maneja desde lo que es hoy el Vicerrectorado de Sostenibilidad, Cooperación y Vida Saludable, que tiene las competencias en sostenibilidad, pero que por su propia naturaleza debe trabajar con otras muchas áreas. Para trabajar el consumo sostenible, forzosamente tenemos que trabajar de manera coordinada y acordada con entidades o con unidades dentro de la universidad como el Servicio de Contratación, Medio Ambiente o unidades más específicas, investigación y, por supuesto, con todas las facultades y departamentos. Dentro de la política de sostenibilidad, bueno, existen varias áreas estratégicas, una de las cuales es justamente la de comercio justo y consumo responsable. Voy a entrar ya brevemente en cómo se desarrolla esta política. Esta política la hemos desarrollado en los últimos años básicamente con tres grandes ejes. Primero, que la comunidad universitaria pueda acceder más y mejor a productos de consumo responsable y comercio justo. Puedas acceder con más facilidad para que puedas consumirlos más, a ser posible en lugar de, no se trata de consumir más, sino de consumir en lugar de cosas no tan sostenibles, otras más sostenibles. Facilitar el acceso. Dos, que la propia universidad como institución de manera centralizada compre responsablemente, las políticas de compra pública responsable, incorpore criterios sociales y ambientales en la compra pública. Y tercero, que esto del consumo responsable sea un elemento que esté a debate, un elemento que movilice, un elemento que genere relaciones, debates, esté presente en la vida, en el debate en la vida universitaria. Voy brevemente a comentar un par de acciones dentro de cada eje. El primer eje, mejor acceso a la comunidad universitaria, básicamente tratamos de informar, que la gente sepa, conozca alternativas de consumo más sostenible en todos los aspectos. Para ello disponemos, entre otras herramientas, una guía de comercio justo y consumo responsable, donde la comunidad universitaria puede encontrar, no para transporte, por cierto, pero sí, esto habrá que revisarlo, pero sí para otros rubros, textil, energía, alimentación, finanzas, material de oficina, alternativas concretas para consumir de otra manera, más justa y sostenible, ya sea dentro del propio campus, como alternativas online o dentro de las ciudades donde la Universidad de Valencia tiene campus, que sabéis que son Valencia, Paterna, Burxassot y Ontinyent. Entonces, tenemos medios para informar y también tenemos alternativas concretas que hemos puesto en marcha. Estamos particularmente contentas con un sistema que nos permite comprar cestas de verduras y no solo, de productos agroecológicos locales, producidos de manera sostenible por productoras ecológicas del entorno de la Horta de Valencia y que puedes recibir semanalmente, lo pides a través de una plataforma online, lo puedes recibir semanalmente en un punto de recogida o en tu propio despacho. Una manera muy sencilla, a través de la cual toda la comunidad puede abastecerse en materia de alimentación de productos frescos y sostenibles. Esta cuestión del debate, bueno, seguimos organizando, como es el caso de la jornada de hoy, un buen número de espacios de diálogo, jornadas, también espacios formativos. Tenemos un voluntariado específico en sostenibilidad, donde las voluntarias luego participan de las acciones de consumo responsable de nuestra universidad, etc. Y finalmente, esta cuestión que hablamos tan central, ¿no? Hacer que nuestra universidad compre bienes y servicios más sostenibles. Para ello hemos realizado toda una serie de acciones, desde formación al personal, sensibilización y la elaboración de una guía de compra pública responsable. Está orientada principalmente para la compra centralizada de bienes y servicios, para los servicios de contratación, donde se encuentran recomendaciones concretas para incorporar criterios sociales, ambientales y de justicia social, de comercio justo, en distintos ámbitos de la compra pública de nuestra universidad, desde los criterios para cafeterías y máquinas de vending hasta la contratación de servicios de seguridad o de acceso a las facultades. Esto ha llevado ya a cambios muy tangibles, principalmente en el área de la alimentación. No voy a detenerme, pero sí que me gustaría comentar y poner en valor que gracias a estas políticas, los nuevos contratos de las cafeterías que dan servicio a nuestras facultades y campus y las máquinas y la mayoría de las máquinas de vending ya han incorporado criterios pues muy ambiciosos. Ahora mismo el 100% del café que podemos consumir en muchas de las cafeterías y en casi todas las máquinas de vending es de comercio justo. La mayoría del producto que hay ahora mismo creo que ya son 6-7 cafeterías, ha de ser por fuerza fresco, la fruta y verdura, y en un porcentaje importante también de producción agroecológica. Muchos productos han de ser forzosamente de proximidad, con certificado IGP o denominación de origen, todos los cítricos, el arroz y algunos otros. No vais a encontrar ya en muchas cafeterías agua embotellada, solo agua en envase reutilizable, prohibida la bollería industrial, muchos cambios que tiene un fuerte impacto en la salud, en el territorio y, por supuesto, en las emisiones. Es incomparable la emisión del agua en botella reutilizable que en botella de plástico, la bollería industrial, en fin. Esto nos lleva a la política de eventos sostenibles, que es en lo que voy a centrarme el tiempo que queda de la presentación. Pensamos en hacer una guía para eventos sostenibles, combinando, digamos, esta estrategia de información, es decir, tener una herramienta que dé información a todos los actores de la comunidad universitaria para poder organizar eventos, reuniones, congresos o simples viajes personales académicos de una manera más sostenible. En fin, una política de información y también una política de compra pública. En este caso, compra pública menor, más descentralizada. Como sabéis, en la universidad, o como cualquier administración pública, o principalmente en la universidad, las grandes compras se hacen de forma centralizada, pero todos los días, como profesores, estamos haciendo compras. Es compra pública. Realmente, cada servicio o bien que compramos no deja de ser un acto de compra pública que podemos hacer de una forma más responsable, tomando decisiones sobre las cuales tenemos plena autonomía. Bueno, en este marco desarrollamos nuestra guía de eventos que vamos ahora a presentar brevemente. La hemos hecho desde el vicerrectorado. Aquí tenemos a la mayoría de las autoras, a Sara Moyá, que ha hecho nuestras presentaciones, David Esteban, yo mismo y la vicerrectora de cooperación, que no está hoy aquí, Pilar Serra. Hemos sido las autoras, aunque esta guía ha sido revisada, masticada y comentada por mucha gente de distintas unidades de gestión, departamentos y institutos de investigación y servicios centrales de la universidad que han dado sus aportaciones. esta guía va orientada a producir cambios en un tema muy estratégico, como es el de los eventos. Es estratégico por muchos motivos, porque implica un elevadísimo volumen de gasto. Se gasta mucho en organizar eventos, en hacer viajes, que tiene un enorme impacto ambiental, principalmente por el tema del transporte. Esto estuvimos informándonos, ahora lo veremos, y hay mucha literatura, no hay tanta literatura, perdón, lo que hay es una diversidad de datos, pero con mucho el mayor impacto de los eventos, que ya es muy elevado, se debe al transporte. Hasta el 70% o a partir del 70% de las emisiones en los eventos suele deberse al transporte. Pero también cuestiones como alimentación tienen un importante impacto. Entonces, los eventos gastan mucho, los eventos tienen mucho impacto, y los eventos ofrecen mucha autonomía. Cuando organizamos un evento, como profesoras o como personal técnico de administración o como unidades de gestión, tenemos mucha autonomía para decidir proveedoras, para tomar decisiones, para ver cómo organizamos nuestro evento. Por esto, esto de los eventos sostenibles es un punto de entrada muy interesante para trabajar cambios en nuestra gestión. Enfoque de la guía, ya enseguida la presento. La guía trata de ofrecer de una manera muy sintética, muy visual, muy aterrizada, indicaciones muy claras, muy concretas, pero también adaptables para tomar decisiones sobre distintos o sobre todos los aspectos claves de la organización de un evento, de una reunión, de un encuentro. El catering, el uso de material de oficina, la elección y gestión de la sede, el transporte, por supuesto, la gestión de alojamiento, la perspectiva de género que, bueno, puede que no tenga que ver directamente con la cuestión ambiental, pero sí con la sostenibilidad, y nos parecía inaceptable que hubiera una guía que te habla de cómo hacer un evento mejor sin incorporar la perspectiva de género, y luego, bueno, otras cuestiones relacionadas con la gestión. El esquema es el siguiente. Bueno, la idea de todo esto, por cierto, no es a la gente que diga, joder, ahora me toca encima de organizar eventos con lo que cuesta meterle esto a la sostenibilidad. Queremos evitar bajo de todas maneras posibles que esta sea la idea. Queremos hacer mucha pedagogía para que sea que esta guía es una herramienta para hacer un evento mejor, un evento de más calidad, un evento más humano, un evento donde tú puedas contar que has utilizado esto para hacerlo con más cariño, más dedicación y más coherencia aún de la que solemos entregar en nuestros eventos. En fin, queremos que insisto, se vea esta guía como una herramienta para eventos mejores y no una herramienta que te da simplemente más carga. Bueno, también hay que decir que esta guía a día de hoy es simplemente, aunque vaya a ser una guía oficial de la universidad, una simple colección de recomendaciones y sugerencias. Ahora mismo no tendría ningún tipo de fuerza legal. Esta podría ser seguramente nuestra ambición. Hablando de transporte, y Stefan, en una de las preguntas que quería hacerle, nos puede comentar, a universidades que tienen una política muy estricta, donde para desplazamientos inferiores a un cierto número de horas o de kilómetros, sencillamente no puedes viajar en avión. Esta sería nuestra ambición. A día de hoy no estamos ahí, pero esto seguramente es un paso intermedio que necesitamos. Voy, si os parece, ya a este momento tan solemne, que sería el de abrir nuestra guía, que por primera vez se presenta en público, nuestra guía para la organización de eventos, actos y congresos con criterios de sostenibilidad y justicia social en la Universidad de Valencia, que este es el título. Por cierto, este borrador, que es el borrador casi definitivo, nos ha llegado esta misma mañana, o sea que realmente esto está muy reciente. Os comento cómo funciona la guía. La guía brevemente te explica un poco los objetivos que os estaba comentando, la importancia de los eventos para transitar hacia una sociedad más sostenible y un poco este espíritu de la guía, ¿no? Que aborda distintos aspectos, que no pretende ser un lastre para las organizadoras, sino una herramienta para hacer mejores eventos, y luego ya entra un poco en estos 6 grandes aspectos que os comentaba. Por ejemplo, catering. Para cada aspecto la estructura es siempre la misma. Hay criterios generales, es decir, qué tenemos que tener en cuenta, y esto creo que es lo que me atrevo a decir, lo que es un valor añadido de esta guía, que no tienen otras, hay muchas guías de este tipo, pero creo que la nuestra, bueno, hemos hecho un esfuerzo por incorporar algo que no siempre está presente, que es herramientas o indicaciones muy concretas para que el criterio se haga realidad. Por ejemplo, un criterio, hablando de catering, fundamental incorporar cuando pidamos a una empresa que nos provea de catering, incorporar en el objeto del contrato que se trata de un servicio de catering con criterios de comercio justo. Y le decimos exactamente lo que tiene que poner. Tienes que pedir a la empresa esto. Bueno, considerar proveedores de la economía social. Es decir, a la hora de proveerte, pues igual es mejor elegir una, o por lo menos entre las ofertas que pidas, pedir a una cooperativa o a una empresa social, o una empresa de la economía social, que no a una empresa, que también, por supuesto, puede ser. Y damos indicaciones, aquí hay una nota al pie de qué es una entidad de la economía social, cómo diferenciarla, cómo saber si lo es o no, etcétera, indicaciones muy concretas. Otros criterios: eliminar la bollería, incrementar la alimentación de origen vegetal, ofrecer producto 100% fresco, lo que hay de temporada, etcétera. Y lo interesante es que a través de... aquí no está el QR porque esta es para la versión online, sino que hay un enlace. A través de este enlace nos iríamos a una plantilla donde tú sencillamente puedes hacer copia-pega de esta plantilla para componer la solicitud que tú le vas a hacer a la entidad que quieres que te provea el catering. Vamos a ver si está activa. Sí, nos iremos a una plantilla. Aquí no está subido aún el archivo, pero sería simplemente un documento de Word donde tú copias y pegas y le dices a la entidad: mira, quiero que me prepares un catering con estas características. No tienes ni que pensarlas tú. Estas características son las que se recogen justamente en la guía. De modo, damos criterios, damos orientaciones concretas para aplicar los criterios y damos herramientas concretas para aplicar estos criterios. Bueno, y así con el resto de elementos que hemos comentado. Material de oficina promocional, lo mismo. Se te dice criterio, utilizar material reciclado, limitar, de hecho la recomendación es no dar ni bolsas, ni botellas, ni libretas, ni nada. Esa es la recomendación. También te dicen que si quieres hacerlo, o por lo motivo que sea, lo hagas con material de determinadas características. Y enlazamos, como os decía, a un material, a un texto que tú puedes copiar y pegar para enviarle a la entidad que te va a proveer, a decirle: mira, quiero que me envíes un material con esta y estas características, de comercio justo, reciclable, etcétera, etcétera. Bueno, damos como todas las indicaciones. Sobre la sede, pues lo mismo, los criterios generales, hay indicaciones concretas, y vamos al transporte, que es donde voy a tener un poquito más, y con esto voy a terminar. Las decisiones que tomamos para dar indicaciones sobre el transporte responden a tratar de mantener un equilibrio entre dar una información muy amplia, muy detallada, con indicaciones más sofisticadas, o dar menos indicaciones, más concretas y más sencillas. A nosotros nos hubiera gustado indicaciones como las ha comentado Stefan. Mira, puedes combinar, puedes ir y volver de una manera y de otra, Esto es lo que nos gustaría hacer, pero no lo hemos hecho. Hemos dado indicaciones mucho más simplificadas, pero creemos que por ello esperamos más eficaces. Voy a entrar en todas ellas porque son solo 3. Un criterio que decimos es: en los viajes que tú reserves, si tú organizas, por ejemplo, para traer invitadas, los que tú organices, tienes que evitar siempre que sea posible el avión y dar preferencia a otras opciones. Y para ello te decimos explícitamente que le digas a la entidad, a la agencia que te gestiona los viajes, que los viajes por debajo de 6 horas, en principio, los viajes que puedan hacerse por un medio que no sea el avión de menos de 6 horas, en principio no los contemples en avión. Es una consigna clara, y aquí tienes un texto que le puedes copiar y pegar para enviarle un mail a la agencia de viajes, porque esa es la política. Y ponemos aquí un pequeño gráfico, que es tal cual, estos son datos del Ministerio, pero son muy similares a los de la Agencia Ambiental Europea, que simplemente pues, te demuestra que efectivamente viajar en ferrocarril es 20 veces menos, emite 20 veces menos CO2 por kilómetro recorrido que en avión. Bueno, damos esta recomendación. Y aquí decimos, y es la única vez que lo decimos en toda la guía, que esta medida es fundamental, que no puedes hacer un evento sostenible si no contemplas esta medida. Puedes poner 40.000 zonas de separación de residuos, puedes dar papel reciclado, pero si no, con todo eso, el impacto de todo eso combinado es muy reducido en relación al impacto del transporte. Esto la gente debe saberlo y en la guía lo explicamos. Otro criterio: los viajes que tú no gestionas debes intentar que se hagan de manera responsable. Para ello les damos un texto para que tú hagas copia-pega, lo puedas pegar en la página de tu congreso o en los emails que envíes, donde dice: distintos estudios muestran que la gran mayoría de emisiones causadas por reuniones académicas, al menos 70% y generalmente más, se deben a los viajes por avión. Por ello resulta imposible realizar un congreso sostenible sin vuestra colaboración. Se pide valorar la pertinencia de existir en avión, etc. O sea, como la gente dando datos muy claros para que tome decisiones más responsables. Y luego vamos a poner de indicaciones más: posibilitar la participación online a algunas personas y, una vez en la ciudad, aunque esto tiene menos impacto, pero también es interesante, pues incentivar el desplazamiento a pie en transporte público o en bicicleta. Además de, y esto aparece en distintas partes de la guía, tomar decisiones que hagan que donde la gente duerme, donde la gente va a la reunión y donde la gente va a ir luego a tomarse algo, esté todo cerquita. Bueno, esto sería un poco lo relacionado con el transporte. Luego tenemos la cuestión de los alojamientos, perspectiva de género y algunos aspectos generales. Voy a dejarlo ahí. Ahora mismo simplemente comentaros que el momento en el que estamos ahora es el de, bueno, cerrar la guía vamos a publicar en el servicio de publicaciones, queda el trabajo de difundirla, vamos a hacer un ejercicio de difusión a través de facultades, departamentos, institutos de investigación, para llegar a todo el mundo, porque todo el mundo, sin excepción, puede utilizar las recomendaciones de la guía. Por todo el mundo me refiero, todo el personal que trabaja para la universidad. Y no universidad, esta guía, y hay gente que le ha echado un ojo del ayuntamiento, de instituciones, y ha dicho, pues esta guía está de categoría, esto lo voy a utilizar yo en mi institución. Entonces vamos a publicar la guía, vamos a difundirla, haremos una pequeña presentación pública, queremos también grabar la presentación para que pueda estar disponible a modo de explicación de la guía, y ahora queda un poco todo el ejercicio de evangelizar, ¿no? El ejercicio de contar, pero el ejercicio de convencer. Insisto, convencer que esto no es un problema añadido, no es un capricho añadido, sino que es una oportunidad de oro para cuando haces un congreso demostrar que lo estás haciendo con responsabilidad, con cariño, con coherencia y con calidad. Al respecto, pues toda la ayuda que podáis dar para difundir, contar y aplicar, por supuesto, la guía, pues es muy bienvenida. Pues nada, muchísimas gracias, lo dejamos aquí y si queréis, pues vamos charlando un poco de todo esto. Gracias. If you have no questions, I have one. My question, Stefan, is about the specific politics which can invite or in reality force people to take these green travel decisions. We know that some universities, they have a very robust policy on that, and they force people to travel by train if distance is less than X kilometers or whatever, in Netherlands, I guess, in some other universities, also in the UK. We are not in this point, but we would like to be in some point in the future. And I would like to tell you about how is this situation in Europe and how you see this, this question. Because, you know, we all know that voluntarism is okay, but it's not enough.
Yes, thank you so much for this question. Yes, I agree that voluntarism is not enough. We have to kind of like a little bit force people in the sense that if you want to make a change. So some universities have indeed put policies into place, like you mentioned, the Netherlands. I can't recall anymore which university it was. I think it was Antwerp, but they have put basically in place a policy where you have to kind of like certain distances, or like that you can reach within 8 hours, for example. You should use green travel. So if you cannot reach a place within 8 hours, then you're allowed to air travel. Or then they have, some other universities put like a radius around. They said, okay, 700 kilometers. This is basically as long, anything you want to go to within 700 kilometers, you have to use green travel. And beyond that, you're allowed to fly. If for some reason you still want to fly, then you need a special permission. So we have this kind of, there might of course be some reason where it's acceptable that we have to fly, maybe for time constraints. But putting rules into place, of course, would be the strongest way to kind of enforce this. And of course, you have to also adjust a little bit to the geographic location of the university. For example, here in Valencia, of course, I understand that wherever you go, it takes longer, because unless you visit other parts in Spain or in Portugal, maybe it's manageable, or the south of France. But as long as you go further beyond, it gets more challenging. So of course, it does not fit for everybody. We say 700 kilometers or 8 hours should be the limit, but we have to adjust it to the local situation. But I would say this would be the ideal way. I hope that more universities will apply this kind of approach, where basically put in a rule into place where basically says that you have to do it this way, and that's it. But at the same time, we also need to give people more support than in using green travel, because as I said earlier, it is more complex. Planning takes more time. We also need a travel agent then who offers the green travel. For example, my own university, we just changed travel agents, and the old travel agent did not proffer any green travel. They said, no, we only sell you flights. If you want to go outside of Finland, flying is the only thing you can do. We don't sell you anything else. Now we changed the travel agent. We got a new one who actually has the option of green travel, which I really welcome. It just started actually this month, so 1st of April. We got a new travel agent. So also here we need to create the infrastructure so that it's easy for us to use green travel, because just saying, oh, you have to use green travel is not enough. You also need to give university staff members then also the tools they need to do the green travel. Yes, but other than that, I would say creating awareness is important. We also need to tell the people why we need to do this. It's not enough to say, oh, well, we have to use green travel now because that's our decision. But we also, in order to get people aboard and not having resistance, we also need, of course, to tell the story behind. Yeah. Yes.
And do you have any specific instrument, like a web page or someplace people in your university can see how to do green travel?
We don't have that yet, but this is the idea we want to now do with the FORTHEM green travel, basically, and also that's what I mentioned earlier. So the information that I gathered during this trip, we want to now compress into a web page, a FORTHEM web page, where basically information would be available. So there you would have tips. So I'm planning actually to make a suggestion for all, collecting all the universities of the FORTHEM network. So let's say you're here in Valencia, you need to go to Dijon. You can just go to a website and look, okay, well, maybe the best connection would be take a train to Barcelona, then another train to Lyon, and from there maybe another train then to Dijon. And this is roughly the route, this is how much it will cost. Also, this is much how emissions it will save. So we need to provide this information, yes. It does not really exist yet. It's very hard to find, but I hope at least in the FORTHEM network we can maybe start with this, and if this is a good example, maybe also others will follow. Yes, yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, thank you for your talk, also Sergio. And what do you think about the European policies of allowing this low-cost traveling by plane? Because I think money is a very important thing for people.
Exactly.
Not only for meetings, but for tourism. So
yes, exactly.
I think that they should include these environmental costs in the price of the tickets. And I don't know how it is now.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you for this question, very good point. I fully agree with you that we should actually make changes there. We should either put some taxes or making it more expensive or find other ways to kind of like, because the environmental costs that are coming through this extra flights that we create, because we create extra demand because of the cheap tickets, really causes like a lot of damage. So this is something, I think the ticket price should reflect the environmental impact. At the same time, maybe also green travel should get cheaper. So we maybe should even like, collect money on the one end and put it to the other side. So then invest, for example, into better train infrastructure, into night trains, buying newer trains and all this. So I think this should be the way to go. Right now, the thing is, the market is rather unregulated, so everybody can do whatever they want. Everybody can open basically a air route as long as it's safe and you have all those things. It's funny actually, if you think aviation is highly regulated when it comes to safety, it's highly regulated when it comes to noise, but it's not very regulated when it comes to the emissions. So this is something where we need to really focus on. I hope the European Union will do some first steps here, and also maybe other countries will follow in the future. But yes, I guess we need regulation. It's not anymore enough. If you just let the market do, we see where we ended up. The market is not gonna take care of it. Yes, yes.
And also there are estimates of which is the threshold really for these individual actions to be effective.
Yes.
Because most people say, well, I could travel by train, but the plane will go anyway. So
exactly, yes.
It really doesn't change.
Yes, of course, once the demand shifts, once it gets more expensive to fly, or it gets less attractive, or it's higher regulated, then people will also go back to the train. I mean, we used to travel by train, we used to travel by bus, or we used not to travel at all. I mean, it's only basically those cheap flights who kind of attracted people into the airplanes and kind of created demand that was not there maybe before. So if you can reverse that in a way by kind of like taking these cheap options out again, so removing the carrot in front of the donkey, then basically I think we can change. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Hmm?
you told before that there are some programs, like Erasmus program, that are allowing more time and more money
Yes.
to improve this. Do you think this is the future for universities as well? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes the real key is time.
Yes.
So you need more time to travel from across
Yeah.
Europe. So there will be some way of arranging the travels and the meeting points in order to allow people more time. And as
Yeah.
you said, you are working while you're traveling because
Exactly.
you are
Yeah.
connected, you're
Yeah.
a rolling office.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
do you think that there will be some regulation in this time and we will be able to offer
Yeah.
this kind of travel at universities?
Yes. Yes, very good question. Definitely. I would say I just had an interesting meeting. So there's this initiative, Erasmus by Train, a student initiative actually, and I met one of the members during my visit in Mainz, and they were really talking about like pushing towards like even providing free Interrail passes to Erasmus students. So basically, or making it so that basically if students want to go for Erasmus exchange, they have to go green. There's no other choice. If you want the money, you have to go green. Maybe we even provide some free Interrail passes or some free train tickets. So this way we kind of make it the only choice and the obvious choice. So you can still fly, but then of course you pay by yourself. I think that would probably be a way to go. In terms of the travel time, when it comes to the students, as I said earlier with the example I showed from my own Erasmus experience, it did not matter whether I used 1 day or 3 days to go to Finland. But of course, if it's a work trip and you work at university and you're a busy professor and you have to go to conference and all this, yes, then of course we have to keep also in mind the time aspect and it might take longer. However, as I said, we can use this travel time also as work time. I think often we don't understand that it's a lot of hours you spend on a train, but it's also like valuable time, quality time you can really use for catching up on work. To be honest, I could even focus better on the train on my work than often in my office back home. So I even found this a quite inspiring environment. You know, you're on the train, you're on the move, you're kind of like trapped there. So the only thing you can do is basically open your laptop and do your work and focus on that. And so I would say I hope more people also experience this in a positive sense and don't see anymore this as it takes a lot of time, but more as like it is actually a benefit. It's actually quality time that you gain. Yes. I hope I answered your question.
And I think all this should be connected with this general tendency in the change or the change in the paradigm of meetings. By now, I think we are going into a new paradigm in which a lot of meetings we did in the past, which were on site, are now online. And for presential meetings, is that the word? On-site meetings. On-site meetings should be seen like very reduced, but of quality. So, for example, in Erasmus Plus projects or Horizon 2020, European Commission does not want you to meet every 2 months or 3 months on site. They want you to meet maybe 1, twice in a project, but to do good meetings in which people go, have time, external people come, internal meetings are connected with some external activities, whatever. And I think this should be part now of our academic culture, that we cannot meet on site all the time. We can meet online most of times, but when we meet on site, this has to be quality time. We have to spend time in order to go and to come back to your house. We have to eat well. We have to have interesting activities. I think this should be a change of, this is already happening, but this should be, I guess, more explicit and more clear. It is not written in the calls, but I think European Commission is now asking for this. I remember now, when we are now writing projects, we reflect on that. No, don't write 4 meetings. They don't want that, or 5 or 6. Just 1, maybe 2, and that's all. But very good meetings with a very interesting schedule. For the other things, for coordination, for working meetings, we can do it online every week if you want, or every month. So I think this change in mentality could be a very good lever for this approach to traveling and to eating when traveling, for example.
Yes, and maybe I can maybe add to this. Also, I heard from some examples even that people travel together, green, and they basically also it was also beneficial for the project because by doing this traveling together, they also kind of experience it. It was like a like an exercise, basically a group exercise. They were doing something together. Maybe there were some challenges. They had to find the right train. They had to run in a station, or like they find a restaurant together. But in a way, it was also a team building exercise. If they would have all flown there, they would have not had the same experience. So I think even the journey itself could be utilized actually for this. Like, and last but not least, I also want to add here. I think also it matters where we meet. I mean, why we cannot look for a central location, for example. Let's say we have a project with partners all over Europe. Let's maybe look for the location that requires the shortest travel for each of the participants. So this way also it is more attractive to go there green. If I have to go from Valencia to Jyväskylä for a project meeting, I mean, I might not go all the way by train because it might take very long. But if let's say the meeting is in Mainz or in Paris or somewhere in the center of Europe, it's easier for everybody to come there. So a green option could be then working for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And in your experience, is friendly the railway network in Europe? I mean, I think that, I don't know, perhaps one of the problems will be, well, if I miss a connection or if I have some problem, different currencies, different languages. So I don't know if the people has this impression also and just take a plane from one point to other and that's it.
I know. Yes, a very good point. Thank you for raising this. Yes, it is indeed a bit of an adventure. Also, if you read my blog, you will see there's instances also where I had maybe, well, not serious trouble, but here and there are some challenges, with communication and finding the right connecting train, or being also worried missing a connection. Well, so far I haven't missed any. Everything has worked very nicely, but of course there's always a risk when you travel between different countries, different systems, that there might be delays and the connecting train might not wait. So indeed, yes, green travel has a bit of an element of adventure, I would say, but I want to put it into a positive light also, because I think it also adds a bit of like an excitement in your life. What my recommendation is to plan it well, so that basically you have enough buffer time between. So usually I try to plan my trains so that I have maybe an hour or two spare time in between. And if the connection works, then it's nice. I can stay in a nice city. For example, I was stopping in Marseille on the way to come here. A very beautiful city I would have not seen otherwise. I had an hour there. I could eat my lunch there and walk around a bit. So this is also kind of like, but if I would have been late, I would have then just taken the next train. So yes, you have to plan this also, or take this into account, that there's of course a risk of missing connections and also a bit of discomfort, the risk of communication. But I think in a way, it is manageable, and also when you read my blog, you can see you can overcome those challenges, and maybe yes, it adds a bit of adventure also to it. So yes, if you see that as a positive thing, of course, yeah. Thank you. Okay.
So thanks so much for your attention,
Yes.
for your interest in the issue,
Yeah.
and hope you follow Stefan
Yes.
and follow our guide on sustainable events
Yes, please do. Yes.
in order to become more responsible transport consumers. Okay.
Yeah, I have to say it's really great to see that you have a guide now out there. This is very important, because this is the first step. You need to tell people what is the issue and how we can act differently. It makes things better. So very happy to see. I was very happy I was here today and also be part of this introduction.
Thanks for that, Stefan.
Yes, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Online questions?
Are there any?
Es verdad. Estaba online también, ¿no? Estaba online la... ¿Había conexión online? Ah, sí. Ah, vale. Ah, vale. Pues nada, en todo caso, perdón, voy a poner simplemente el contacto mío para cualquier duda, o sea, pregunta, para lo que sea, pues aquí estamos. Muchas gracias. En nombre de Sara, cierro el ¿no? Que suba.
Por venir. Gracias a todo el mundo por venir. Gracias, Stefan. Gracias, Sergio. Espero que nos han gustado muchísimo vuestras intervenciones, y cualquier duda nos podemos escribir por email para la gente que esté online. Y nada, nos quedan las entrevistas de
yeah, offline.